Hi, I'm Ella. It all started back when I was a fresh-faced hairdresser, barely out of school and already behind the chair at a small salon downtown. Those were simpler times, just me and my scissors, and the whole world seemed like it was there for the taking. It was a regular Tuesday when James first walked in. The bell above the door jangled and in he came, looking around like he wasn't sure he'd come to the right place. His hair was a mess, a wave of thick curls that looked like they fought comb and scissors equally. "Hey, you open for a walk-in?" he asked, his voice unsure over the buzz of hairdryers and chit-chat. "Sure thing, take a seat," I said, pointing to my chair. He sat down, and I threw the cape over him, snapping it at the back a bit tighter than necessary. "What are we doing today?" "Just, make it look like I ain't been dragged through a hedge backwards," he joked, half smiling in the mirror. I laughed, picking up my scissors. "I reckon I can do that." As I worked, we started talking. Turns out, we both had a thing for old-school rock bands and hated modern pop. "Can't stand that electronic stuff they play everywhere now," he grumbled. "Tell me about it. Give me some Zeppelin or Floyd any day," I replied, snipping away. "Exactly," he said, and just like that, it was like we'd known each other for years. We talked about everything under the sun, books, movies, you name it. By the time I was done, his hair looked 100 times better, and there was something in his smile that told me this wouldn't be the last I'd see of him. He came back every other week for a trim, always timing his visits so it'd be my chair he'd end up in. We started grabbing coffee after my shifts, and those coffees turned into dinners, and well, you know how it goes. A year later, we were married. Nothing fancy, just us and our families in the backyard of his folks' place. We were so broke back then that our honeymoon was 3 days in a lakeside cabin that smelled like mildew and old fish. But we didn't care, we were on top of the world. Then along came Michael, our little bundle of joy. Having him was tough at first, what with money being tight and me trying to juggle motherhood with work. But we made it through, mostly because James was right there with me, taking on night feeds and diaper changes without a single complaint. Life was good. Really good. We had our ups and downs, sure, but who doesn't? I loved my job, got to meet all sorts of folks from around town. Everyone had a story, and they all seemed to want to share theirs with me. Guess I just have one of those faces. 30 years sure fly by when you're busy living life. Now, I'm 52, and not just any hairdresser, but the one in town everyone waits a month to see. James climbed his way up too, now he's the big boss at his company. We've got ourselves a beautiful house that's a bit too quiet now that it's just the two of us. Our son Michael, 29 and all grown up, lives in his own place across town. Life at the salon was always bustling, but on one rainy afternoon, it got a bit more interesting. Clara walked in, drenched from head to toe, looking like she needed more than just a hairdryer. She had a sad sort of look in her eyes that caught me right away. I could tell she needed a chat as much as a new hairstyle. "Rough day, huh?" I asked as she plopped down in my chair, not even caring as the water dripped from her coat onto the floor. "You could say that," she sighed, taking off her soggy hat and revealing a mess of tangled, wet hair. "Just split with my boyfriend. Feels like my heart's been through the ringer." "Well, you're in the right place for a pick-me-up," I said, draping a towel around her shoulders. "Let's get you dried off and fixed up. How about we try something new today? Give you a fresh start?" Clara nodded, looking up at me through the mirror. "I'd like that. I really would." As I worked on her hair, we talked about all sorts. Turns out, she was new in town, trying to start over after everything that had gone south with her ex. I found myself giving her bits of advice, not just about hair, but about finding her feet in a new place. By the time I was done, she had a sleek new bob that framed her face perfectly, and her smile was starting to peek through again. "You know, I feel lighter already," she admitted, checking out her new look. "Thanks, Ella. Seriously." "Anytime, Clara. You know where to find me," I said, handing her the mirror so she could see the back. Just then, Michael walked in, surprising me during work hours. He'd been doing some errands around town and decided to drop by. His eyes landed on Clara, and I saw that same spark I'd noticed between me and James all those years ago. "Mom, hey, who's this?" Michael asked, trying not to make it obvious he was checking Clara out. "This is Clara. Clara, meet my son Michael. He's usually not around during the day, thinks he's too busy for his old mom," I joked, giving Michael a playful glare. "Nice to meet you, Clara. And Mom, I'm never too busy for you," Michael shot back with a grin. Clara laughed, and I could see her warming up to Michael's charm. "Nice to meet you too, Michael. Your mom's been telling me all about the town. Sounds like you both know it inside out." "Yeah, well, I could show you some places if you like," Michael offered, and I almost rolled my eyes at how smooth he was being. "That'd be great," Clara said, her smile bright and genuine now. As they chatted, I cleaned up my station, keeping one ear on their conversation. It was clear they clicked instantly. Michael offered to take her out for a coffee to continue their tour guide chat, and Clara agreed. Watching them walk out together, I felt a mix of emotions. I was happy for Michael, seeing him light up around Clara, but a part of me worried, too. Starting new relationships on the rebound can be tricky, and I hoped he wouldn't end up getting hurt. Michael and Clara, who quickly became like a daughter to me, had rushed into marriage. It was a whirlwind, sure, but seeing them so happy made everything feel right. We often had them over at our place, where laughter filled the rooms more than the light. I loved those dinners. Clara would always joke about her taste in men, teasing Michael by saying she liked them slender and athletic. Michael would play along, sucking in his gut and flexing like a bodybuilder, which had us all cracking up every time. It was all in good fun. And after we ate, Clara would help clean up without missing a beat, saying she couldn't just sit and watch me do all the work. It warmed my heart to have such a caring daughter-in-law. James and we were doing all right ourselves. He had become a big shot at his company, always busy, always on the move. But things started to change, subtly at first. He began working late more often, and his business trips multiplied. I'd ask him about all the extra hours and travel, and he'd just shrug it off, saying, "It's a busy season, Ella. Gotta make hay while the sun shines." I couldn't argue with that, but it was his newfound love for the gym that really threw me for a loop. One morning, I found him digging out workout clothes from the back of our closet. "What's all this about?" I asked, watching him as he packed a gym bag. "Got to keep up with the young guys at work," he chuckled, zipping the bag shut. "Can't let them think I'm getting old." "That so?" I teased, leaning against the doorframe. "Well, look at you, Mr. Fitness." He flashed me a grin. "Who knows, maybe I'll get abs like Michael." I laughed, because the thought of James, who usually avoided physical exertion like it was the plague, suddenly turning into a gym buff, was too bizarre. But, I have to admit, part of me was glad. Glad he was taking care of himself. It seemed like a good thing. Life seemed almost perfect. Our home was filled with love and laughter, our careers were thriving, and with Michael and Clara so happy, grandkids didn't seem like a far-off dream anymore. But every so often, when James would leave for another sudden business trip or come home late from the gym, a small voice in the back of my head whispered doubts. I pushed them away, telling myself it was all normal, just part of life's routine adjustments. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling entirely. Watching him pack for another trip, I'd find myself asking, "Everything okay at work?" "Same as ever, just the grind," James would answer, and though his words were reassuring, his eyes didn't quite meet mine like they used to. I started watching the clock, noting when he left and when he got back. The intervals were stretching longer, the explanations shorter. "Just ran into some traffic," or "had to help a colleague out," became common refrains. One night, lying in bed waiting for him to come home, I realized that no matter how perfect things seemed, there was a crack somewhere. I just hoped it was my imagination running wild, a silly phase that would pass. Because the alternative, the possibility that something serious was amiss, was something I wasn't ready to face. Not yet. It was a regular Thursday at the salon when Marie, a client I've known for years, came in bubbling with excitement about her recent vacation. As she settled into the chair, she started showing me videos they'd taken. "We caught so much of the trip, Ella, look at this one," she beamed, scrolling through her phone. As she held up the screen, a video of a bustling restaurant played. I watched, half listening as Marie narrated their dining experience, but my attention snapped fully when the camera unintentionally captured a couple at the next table in a deep kiss. My heart sank, my breath caught in my throat. It was James and Clara, Michael's wife, tangled up in each other, completely lost in the moment. "Can you send that to me?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. Marie, puzzled by my sudden interest, nodded slowly and forwarded the video to me. "Sure, but are you all right, Ella? You look pale." I forced a smile, shaking my head slightly. "Yeah, just thought I saw someone I knew. Thanks." The rest of the day passed in a blur. My hands moved mechanically, cutting and styling, but my mind was stuck on that video. The image of James and Clara together haunted every moment. I didn't dare call James. Instead, I waited until I was home, my nerves stretched tight, and called Michael. "Michael, I need you to come over. It's important," I said as soon as he picked up, trying to keep my voice steady. When he arrived, his face was etched with concern. "Mom, what's going on? Are you okay?" I didn't meet his eyes as I handed him my phone with the video queued up. "Just watch," I said, my voice breaking. The color drained from Michael's face as he watched. The shock, the realization, hit him all at once. "Dad? And Clara?" His voice was a mix of disbelief and pain. He looked from the phone to me, searching for an answer. Before I could reply, the front door swung open and in walked James, Clara beside him, both laughing about something trivial. The sight of them so carefree twisted the knife deeper into my chest. James, still smiling, started, "Guess who I ran into today and gave a ride?" His words hung in the air as he finally noticed the atmosphere. Michael threw the phone on the table, the video still playing, the sound of their laughter grotesquely out of place now. James's smile faltered, his eyes flicking from the phone to our faces, realizing what had happened. Clara's smile dropped as she followed his gaze to the screen displaying their indiscretion. The second that video ended, the air in the room turned icy. James turned pale as if he'd seen a ghost, while Clara, with a cruel smirk, didn't even try to hide her glee. "I love him," she declared, pointing unabashedly at James. "And honestly, Ella, you're old. He doesn't want you anymore." Her words stung like a slap. I felt a deep, hollow ache in my chest. I couldn't believe I had welcomed such a snake into our home, into our family. How had I been so blind? Michael's reaction was instant. His face flushed with anger as he stood up, towering over his father. "I'm done with you, Dad. And you." He turned his fury towards Clara. "Get out of my house." Clara's laugh was sharp, her voice laced with entitlement. "And where am I supposed to go? I'm entitled to half of this apartment and alimony. You owe me that much." Michael scoffed, the sound bitter and full of scorn. "The apartment was mine before we even met. It's in my name only. And as for alimony," he sneered, "your cheating has taken care of that. You get nothing." While Clara fumbled for a response, James stepped in, his voice cold and calculated. "We need to talk about our assets, Ella. We've got 30 years of marriage here. I want half of everything." His audacity was breathtaking. My entire world was crumbling, and he was worried about money. The nerve of him, after what he'd done, to stand there and demand a share of our life together as if he hadn't just betrayed everything we built. The divorce was nasty, drawn out, and every encounter dripped with venom, especially from James. He strutted into court, playing the wronged party, trying to smear my name and grab as much as he could from the ruins of our marriage. It was excruciating to watch the man I had loved twist our memories into lies, just to gain an upper hand. And Clara, oh Clara had the gall to taunt me outside the courtroom on the last day. "You're just an old woman, Ella. James wanted someone young and beautiful, like me." Her words echoed in my ears, each syllable a pointed dagger meant to wound. It felt like the ultimate betrayal, not just of the heart, but of all the years we'd spent side by side. I drove home those days feeling like the shell of the woman I used to be, questioning my worth, questioning every year we'd spent together. But through this storm, Michael was my rock. He stood by me, his presence a constant reminder that not everything from my marriage was a loss. Seeing the strength and integrity in my son, I realized that if my marriage had given me nothing else, it had given me him, a man who knew right from wrong, who stood up for what was right even when it was hard. One morning, I stood in front of the mirror, took a deep breath, and made a vow to myself. Ella, it's time to rebuild, from the ground up. The reflection staring back at me nodded, as if sealing the pact. One of the hardest decisions I had to make was about the house. It was too full of memories, too big for just me. Plus, the settlement required that we sell it and split the proceeds. Fresh start, Ella, I muttered to myself as I signed the papers at the real estate agent's office. Trust me, you're making the right move, the agent, a kindly middle-aged man named Roger, assured me. Something smaller, more manageable, it'll be good for you. He was right. I bought a cozy 2-bedroom apartment closer to the city center, perfect for one. The day I moved in, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. As I unpacked boxes and arranged furniture, there was a sense of creating something new, something wholly mine. The next challenge was work. My career had always been a part of who I was, and I wasn't about to give that up. With the divorce settlement, I had some capital, and a fiery drive to not just continue, but to expand. I decided to open my own beauty salon. Finding the right location took time. I walked through countless potential spots, each time envisioning what could be. When I finally found the perfect place, a small but bright space on a busy street, I knew it was the one. I can see it now, I told Michael, who had come along to give his approval. Ella's Elegance, right there on the sign. He grinned, his earlier support unwavering. It's perfect, Mom. You're going to make it into something amazing. The process of opening the salon was grueling. Renovations, permits, supplies, it seemed endless. But with each step completed, I felt a surge of accomplishment. This was mine, my creation, my new beginning. The grand opening was a flurry of excitement. Friends, longtime clients, and even curious passers-by filled the space, their chatter and laughter breathing life into the once empty shop. 3 years have passed since the divorce, and looking back, I barely recognize the woman I was when this all started. My business has flourished, becoming more than I had dared to hope. The community's support has been overwhelming, and in return, I've done my best to give back, to create a space that's welcoming and warm. Michael got married again 2 years after the divorce. He met Lisa at a community event, and they hit it off right away. They've since had twins, a boy and a girl. Seeing him so happy, so fulfilled, it's given me a new kind of joy I didn't know I was missing. As I lock up the salon at night, the last of the sunset casting a warm glow through the front windows, I often pause and reflect. This journey, every up and down, every setback, and every victory, has reshaped me. I'm not the same person I was, and I'm grateful for it. In those moments, surrounded by the hum of dryers and the smell of shampoo, I realized I had found my way out of the darkness. The betrayal that had once threatened to break me had instead built me stronger, fiercer. One day, out of the blue, I received a call from James, my ex-husband. His voice was casual, as if we were old friends catching up, but his words were like a slap in the face. Ella, I think it's only fair I get half of your beauty salon. It's doing well, and frankly, it was started with my money since I was the main breadwinner for so long. The nerve of him, after everything, to claim a piece of what I had built from scratch with my own money, post-divorce. I was seething, but I kept my cool. Okay, James, let's meet and talk about it, I said, plotting to turn the tables on him. After hanging up, I called Michael. He was furious when he heard and suggested we dig a little deeper into James's life now. Mom, let's see what he's really up to, he said, proposing to hire a private investigator. I agreed. It was time to uncover whatever James and that woman he left us for were hiding. We chose to meet in a crowded cafe downtown. I arrived early, spotted them from a distance, James, looking older but trying hard to appear youthful, beside his much younger wife, Clara, who was visibly pregnant. Sitting down, I braced myself for a tiresome charade. James wasted no time. "Ella, thanks for coming. You know, with the baby on the way, Clara wants to start her own salon. We think a share of your business would be a good start for our family's future." Clara looked at me, smirking smugly as if she had already won this battle. I forced a smile, listening to James ramble about the bright future he envisioned for his new family, all the while thinking how deluded he was. Finally, when he paused for breath, I saw my moment. "James, you're living in a fantasy. This business you want so badly? It was built entirely without your money or influence. And as for this child you're so excited about..." I paused, my smile fading as I pulled out a series of photos and slid them across the table to him. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. James and Clara leaned in to look at the photos, clear shots of Clara with another man, not just in casual settings but leaving a hotel together. "And there's more," I continued, my voice steady, despite the chaos I was unleashing. "James, remember when you had chickenpox so bad at 38? The doctor said it left you infertile. I didn't have the heart to tell you before, thinking it would crush you." The color drained from James's face. Clara's eyes widened in horror as she turned to him, her hands trembling. "You're lying," Clara shrieked, her voice breaking. James just sat there, stunned, as reality crashed down around him. He turned to Clara, anger contorting his features. "Is this true? Are you cheating on me?" The cafe around us had gone silent, all eyes glued to our table. Clara started sobbing, her previous arrogance washed away by public humiliation. "James, I can explain," she stammered, but James was already on his feet. "I don't want to hear it. We're done." He was shouting now, causing a scene as his world fell apart. "Get out of my life." I stood up, smoothing down my skirt. "I think this meeting is over," I announced, my voice loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "I want nothing more to do with either of you." As I walked away, the last thing I saw was Clara weeping and James yelling, the staff rushing over to intervene. I stepped out into the sunlight, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. A few days later, I was at the salon, tidying up after a busy day. The bell above the door jingled, and I looked up to see Michael walking in, his face bright with a smile. "Hey, Mom, how's the champion of independence doing today?" he teased, walking over to give me a hug. I laughed, handing him a broom to help me clean up. "Oh, stop it. But I won't lie, it feels good. Really good." "That's what I like to hear," Michael replied, starting to sweep. "So, what's next for you?" I paused, leaning on my broom. "Well, I've been thinking about that a lot. I want to do more than just run the salon. I want to give back somehow." Michael nodded, looking thoughtful. "You've got a lot to offer, Mom. Maybe some kind of mentorship program? You know, for young women starting out?" "That's exactly what I was thinking," I said, excitement bubbling up inside me. "I want to help them build their own futures, make sure they have the support they need." The following weeks flew by as I put our ideas into action. I reached out to local community centers and schools, setting up workshops and talks. The response was overwhelming. So many young women came, eager to learn and grow. One evening, after a particularly successful workshop, I sat in my salon, reflecting on everything that had happened. The phone rang, and I answered it, still in a reflective mood. "Ella's Elegance, this is Ella." "Mom, it's me," came Michael's cheerful voice. "Just wanted to check in. How was the workshop today?" "It was fantastic, Michael. These girls, they're so bright and full of potential. It makes me feel like I'm really doing something worthwhile," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. "That's awesome, Mom. I knew you'd be great at this." We chatted a bit more, and after hanging up, I felt a profound sense of peace. I had come so far from the woman who thought her life was over after a divorce. Now, here I was, making a real impact, feeling more fulfilled than I ever had.